Welcome to the Torah Birthing Podcast. Hey, my name is Batya Khan. I'm a Rebbetzin, doula, and childbirth educator. My mission is to help women have the best transition into motherhood that you could possibly wish for, so you could fulfill your tafkid with support and recognize the power that you have. The Torah is the guidebook for our lives. It's the best mindset work that you could possibly do. Are you familiar with it? It's important to know, it's important to learn, so let's do this. Hey everyone, I've been exploring different concepts from the Parsha and Haftorah in our weekly episodes, but this week I want to do something different. I just finished learning Meseches Nidda last week for a siyum for my husband's family reunion. It was honestly so beautiful to take part in this and see a gorgeous family with over 100 people, Baruch Hashem, all together for a weekend. I found it absolutely fascinating to learn this Masechta because it has so much information about us as women and our bodies. So there are three things I want to talk about here specifically. The age-old mitzvah of Taharas Hamishpacha, and how we are doing the exact same thing. Second thing is the female anatomy in Torah. The third thing is that husbands who learn can gain a lot of understanding of female anatomy and the birth process. I highly recommend learning this Masechta from inside specifically because there's so much about our bodies, ourselves, and this mitzvah that we need to discuss. This is just the summary of some of the most interesting points that I've personally explored. The Mitzvah of Taharas Hamishpacha that we do today is the same mitzvah as they did in the times of the Bais Hamikdash, with some differences. There are some things that we can't do today. Today, a woman becomes Nidda when she first sees blood. And it's not really so important to know exactly when she became Nidda, if she was spotting or bleeding before she found it. But in the times of the Bais Hamikdash, it was super important to know exactly when, because anything a woman sat on or handled became tameh. They had special clothes, they had special beds, they had special chairs for when they were Nidda. Now, I want to talk about the status of Tuma and Tara. For some reason, we started taking it into the English language incorrectly. So Tuma means impure and Tara means pure. It's a status. But I want to take this further. On Instagram, an OBGYN was saying that she doesn't like the term nursing clean, which people typically use to mean nursing without getting a period. And she was saying that this implies that there's such a thing as dirty in this, and we don't want to feel dirty with ourselves. So I don't have a problem with this whole premise that we don't want to say nursing clean because we don't want to feel negative about ourselves. But I do have a problem with the fact that we are demonizing dirt. It probably has a lot to do with the issues with the English language, but we'll get to that later. So, first of all, our periods aren't gross, but they do make us dirty. We have to clean ourselves and maintain good hygiene. I once saw someone posting content of how they were saving their period blood for something, like watering their plants or whatever, and I seriously wanted to throw up. What has this world come to sometimes, I think. So, yeah, we're dealing with dirty stuff. Periods have a dirty element to it. David HaMelech says that his hands were dirty with blood to paskin shilos. Yadai meluchlachos bidam letaher isha lebaila. That's what he said. Let's talk about some more examples, because there are so many. The Chayalim who are fighting for us in Eretz Yisrael, because let's be clear, that's what Gaza is. Their work in there is so holy. But guess what? It's very dirty. It's very messy. As a mother, too, I could say it's a very dirty job. It's messy. There isn't a time when everything is clean. Seriously, I clean up, I turn around, and there's something new going on. I'm sure lots of us can relate. 2-year-olds are real trouble. Or I change my 4-month-old's outfit, and before you know it, she already spit up half of her milk all over her new outfit. And all over me too. I can never be clean all day. And when I get too obsessed with being clean, that's when I lose my cool. And that is not cool. Motherhood can get really dirty, but it's beautiful and it's holy. Another example, the avoda in the Bais Hamikdash. It was so messy and so dirty. Picture the Kahanim walking around barefoot, shechting assorted animals, and bringing karbanos all day. That was probably really dirty. But also, it was really holy and beautiful. It's Hashem's house. So Hashem wants us to make space for him in this world, and that involves dealing heavily with all the dirt around here. This is what he wants, and we need to be in the dirt in order to make it happen. And the process is beautiful and it's holy. The Mitzvah of Taharas Hamishpacha is dirty, but it's holy and beautiful. Your dirt is holy and it's what Hashem wants. But I do think that the term dirty in English is held as somewhat derogatory. And that is why I think Lashon HaKodesh is so, so beautiful. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So there's a whole discussion here of when a woman became Nidda, and they were so obsessed with it. They were always checking themselves, and they needed to know exactly what status they were in at that moment. They also had 2 different types of status that had different amounts of days of Tumah. There was a Nidda and a Zava. There are different nuances and different types of countings with each one, and different karbanos are brought. So, we are not as detailed as they were today, and we don't have the concept of a Zava, but it's important to see what was similar. We can see in the Mishnah so clearly practices relating to the calendar dates. It talks about when a woman is Meseches Nidda, where she doesn't typically get a period. Today, we have this concept with the calendar. First, we discuss a basula in the Mishnah. And a basula in this case, the Mishnah means a girl who hasn't gotten her period ever yet. It's not a girl who hasn't been with a man yet over here. It's interesting too. It's explained that a girl can be a basula in this way, in this sense, even once she's married and had a baby. So I was thinking, how is that possible? Well, there were girls then who got married before ever having menstruated, and they caught their first ever ovulation, and she got pregnant and had a baby before she had ever gotten a period. This is a good reminder that ovulation happens before menstruation. This is why we see that a woman could get pregnant while nursing and not even have a period in between. The second woman who is Meseches Nidda is a meuberes, a pregnant woman. Once she is 3 months pregnant and it becomes obvious to others. This is why we keep the calendar dates that fall out in the first 3 months of pregnancy, and then during pregnancy we are considered Meseches Nidda for the remainder of the pregnancy. The fourth type of woman is a meinekes, a nursing woman. And there's an argument in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah concludes that for 24 months, a woman is considered Meseches Nidda, regardless of if she was nursing or not. What that means for us today is that we cannot get a kavua for a period of 2 years. The last type of woman is a zakena, a menopausal one. That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. The Mishnah talks about C-sections too, and how a woman becomes tummy from them. There is so much packed in here. But what I think is extra cool is that the fact that the Mishnah goes through anatomy partially over here. It continues in other places. There's the cheder, there's the room part, which is referring to the uterus. There's the prosdor. Prosdor is a corridor, and that is referring to the vaginal canal. There's the aliyah, the upper story, and that is referring to the bladder, which is higher up than the uterus, right before it. There's the makar, the source, which is the uterus, another name for the uterus, the cheder, the makar, it's all the same thing. The words in Lashon HaKodesh are so powerful, and they are the best way to say things. You might notice that I don't use English or medical terms for things in previous episodes, and I won't be using them going forward. This is because Lashon HaKodesh has a special way of being so pure and refined. Medical terms are necessary for us, and they're necessary to be used, but they're not necessary for me to use if I want to speak in a tznius manner on this podcast. You get what I'm talking about. The terms we use in English do bother me sometimes. I was talking about dirt and dirty before, and they don't sound really good in English. And I gotta admit that it does sound pretty bad. I also hate the term falling pregnant. She fell pregnant. I don't know if it's a British thing, but I've heard it from somebody who was British, and I did not enjoy it. It feels very disempowering. The terms the Torah uses are the best terms, the most refined, the most empowering, and they are the terms that I will be using. I get disappointed by the fact that this beauty does get lost in translation, and people often think of these things in terms of how the English language works. This brings me to the next point. Men who really learn Torah properly know a lot about female anatomy and the birth process. I was having a discussion with another doula about if husbands should join in their wives' birth education. And personally, my opinion is that I don't think they should. I believe that every woman must educate herself first. It's so important for her to be educated. And then she should decide, based on that, on what support she personally needs. Once she does that, she could make a list of things that her husband should do for her. Is it saying affirmations to you? You're doing a good job? Is it being hands-on when you're not Nidda? Is it calling the midwife, the doula, or the doctor? Or all of them? Is it taking care of the other kids? Is it grabbing all the stuff in the hospital bag for a hospital birth? Or is it making sure that everyone is nourished when you're giving birth at home? Whatever it is, whatever it will be, you will only know what to do, you will only know what to say if you yourself get educated. I talk about this in my birth course, and we walk through guiding your husband in what you need. How are you going to do it, and what's the best way for you personally? It's important to communicate your needs in birth and postpartum and in life in general. So do it today. Start writing those lists. And that's it for my reflections right now on Meseches Nidda. There's so much more to learn. And I'm excited specifically to discuss the midwives in Parshas Shemos next week in Mitzvah. Hadron alach Meseches Nidda, v'hadra chalan. We learned Meseches Nidda, and we will learn Meseches Nidda over and over again. I would love to hear what you think. Message me on Instagram @TorahBirthing or send me an email, torahbirthing@gmail.com.